Action of rivers. A river is a mass of water flowing in a definite valley. Most rivers have their source in highland areas where snow or high rain falls to supply them with water. Small rivers that flow into big rivers are called tributaries. The point at which tributaries join the main river is known as confluence. The
Action of rivers. A river is a mass of water flowing in a definite valley. Most rivers have their source in highland areas where snow or high rain falls to supply them with water.
Features resulting from the action of rivers. As a river flows from the highlands to the lowlands, it performs three very important functions. These are erosion, transportation, and deposition. As the river erodes the land on which it flows, it transports materials and deposits them in the lower areas. Both erosion and deposition results in formation of many features. The table below contains features formed by river erosion and those formed by river deposition. The erosional features are V-shaped valleys, waterfalls, rapids, gorges, potholes, and interlocking spar. Depositional features are alluvial fans, oxbow lakes, levees, deferred tributaries, braids, floodplains, and deltas. Erosional features. The upper course in the river is the part of the river close to the source on the mountains and hills. These features include V-shaped valleys, gorges, interlocking spars, waterfalls, rapids, and potholes. Let us now discuss how the erosional features are formed. V-shaped valleys. On the slopes of the mountains, the river erodes deep into the ground to form a V-shaped valley with steep slopes. Some rivers erode much deeper to form narrow, steep-sided valleys called gorges.
Interlocking spars. As the river flows down the slope, it tends to go around rocks that are resistant to erosion. This leads to formation of bends on the mountain slopes, giving the river a winding course. The resistant rocks project into the river valley, forming interlocking spars.
Waterfalls. Sometimes the riverbed consists of rock of varied resistance to erosion. In such areas, the softer rocks are eroded, leaving the resistant rock to form a shortfall of water known as rapid. Along some rivers, the fall of water is deep. In such cases, it is called a waterfall. Waterfalls form in different ways. These are where a layer of resistant rock lies horizontally across the riverbed, where a layer of resistant rocks lies vertically across the riverbed, where a layer of resistant rock dips gently upstream across the riverbed, where the river descends over a sharp edge of a plateau, where a river descends a fault scarp, where a river descends a cliff, where a river descends a hanging valley into a glacial trough, and where a river rejuvenates.
Where a layer of resistant rock lies horizontally across the riverbed, where a layer of resistant rock lies vertically across the riverbed, where a layer of resistant rock dips gently upstream across the riverbed, where the river descends over a sharp edge of a plateau, where a river descends a fault scarp, where a river descends a cliff, where a river descends a hanging valley into a glacial trough, where a river rejuvenates. Potholes are the beds of many shallow rivers where the top layer of rock consists of a mixture of soft and hard rocks. The river erodes unevenly, forming shallow depression. These are visible on clay riverbeds and are called potholes. Depositional features. The depositional features include alluvial fans, oxbow lakes, levees, deferred tributaries, braids, floodplains, and deltas. Meanders. Meanders are a common feature along the lower course of many rivers. Meanders are curved bands of a river channel. They develop as the river flows within an area of gentle slopes. They then flow sluggishly and deposit material in the channel. The river flows around the materials and other obstacles, forming a bend called a meander. The meander becomes more pronounced as the river erodes the outer bank and continues to deposit in the inner bank. In Kenya, there are several rivers that have pronounced meanders. These include River Ngaila on Kano Plains and the River Tana. Oxbow. Pronounced meanders are separated from the main river to form a feature called an oxbow. The oxbow has a horseshoe shape. It is formed due to erosion and deposition on the outer and inner banks of the meander. When the river floods, the narrow neck separating the meanders is cut off as the river takes a new straight course, abandoning the meander to form an oxbow. Some oxbows contain water and are known as oxbow lakes. When the oxbow lake eventually dry up, they leave behind a feature called meander scar. Floodplain. In the lower course of the river, the meandering river erodes its banks and widens its valley. The thick layers of the deposits spreads over the entire width of the valley to form a large plain of alluvium called floodplain. During successive floods, new layers of alluvium form above the old, raising the level of the plain. Deposition is greatest closest to the river because as the water floods out of the river, its speed is reduced by friction with the banks and the heavier sediments are dropped fast. This leads to the formation of raised banks called levees. After the floods subside, the water covering the floodplain may dry up or find their way back to the river, but in places where levees form for a long distance along the river, the flood waters on the plain flow parallel to the main river and are prevented from flowing back to the main river by the levees. The parallel river is called deferred tributary. Eventually, it may join the main river at a deferred junction. River braids. In some parts of the lower course, the river flows along very gentle slopes. As a result, the river may deposit materials on its bed, blocking the waters. When this happens, the water may cut through the deposit, forcing it to divide and subdivide itself into a series of interconnecting minor channels called braids. Such a river is called a braided channel. The braids are separated by heaps of alluvium called sandbanks. Sandbanks form small islands called a yacht or ite. Alluvial fan. Some rivers flow through steep narrow channels and erode their banks, carrying a lot of load. When such a river enters a plain, it suddenly loses speed and energy. So it spreads out and deposits its load, spreading it out to form a fan-shaped deposit of a silt called alluvial fan. Alluvial fans are common, though not restricted to dry lands. Deltas. A delta is a large, flat, low-lying plain of alluvium formed at the mouth of a river, especially along the seacoasts. The deltas have certain common features with floodplains, such as the natural levees, shallow lakes, and marshes. The three types of deltas are arcuate delta, estuarine delta, and bird's foot delta. Arcuate delta. It is formed by both coarse and fine materials deposited by rivers with many distributaries. Strong sea current smoothens and round out the seaward edge of the delta, forming a shoreline which is shaped like an arc. Arcuate deltas are found at the mouth of the River Tana, Yatta, and Sondu in Kenya, and Nile in Egypt. Estuarine delta. Estuarine delta forms where a river mouth is deep. The river brings in both fine and coarse material. These deposits take a long time to fill the mouth. Some materials may be carried away by strong sea currents. As a result, the delta consists of many sandbanks and islands. Examples of estuarine deltas are Betsiboka Delta in Madagascar, Zambezi Delta in Mozambique, and Volta River Delta in Ghana. Deltas. A delta is a large, flat, low-lying plain of alluvium formed at the mouth of a river, especially along the seacoasts. The deltas have certain common features with floodplains, such as the natural levees, shallow lakes, and marshes. The three types of deltas are arcuate delta, estuarine delta, and bird's foot delta. River capture and river rejuvenation. First, we shall discuss river capture. Another name for river capture is river piracy. River capture is the diversion of part of a river into the system of a more powerful river. This may happen where two rivers are flowing parallel to one another. The tributary of one river may erode backwards into the valley of a neighboring river. On reaching the valley, the headwaters of the neighboring river are diverted to flow into the valley of the tributary. A river capture is evidenced by the presence of certain features. These features are shown in diagram 3. River rejuvenation. River rejuvenation is the renewal of and erosive activity of a river. This may be caused by the following conditions: a fall in sea level, uplift of land along which the river is flowing, increase in river discharge due to increase in rainfall, which leads to increased river energy, unequal localized subsidence of land along the river course, changing rock resistance from hard to softer rocks along a river course,